The Summit Within was the most emotionally intense project I'd ever worked on. This film follows a group of veterans as they use nature as a form of recovery, trying to summit a big mountain here in Colorado, a 13,345-foot peak near the Great Sand Dunes National Park. They'd summit the 13er, descend, cross the sand dunes, and use nature as a form of recovery for a lot of what they are going through. Mattia is a recent amputee, having lost his arm while serving in Italy. Kate is a military doctor and has a terminal illness. And Michelle has PTSD from serving in Bosnia.
Your lungs cannot expand any further.
And so each of their stories is quite intense, and we set off on this adventure as a way to kind of test the theory of if nature can be used as recovery, then this is a great opportunity for them to kind of come back into themselves. I was initially approached with this story by a UK-based production company. They had partnered with the Invictus Games Foundation, which is a nonprofit dedicated to helping wounded, injured, and sick service personnel and veterans. The Invictus Games Foundation had planned this adventure and adventures similar to this all over the world to help these wounded, injured, sick veterans use nature as a form of recovery. Where I got brought in was they wanted to make a film about it. They wanted to make a film about these veterans' experience, and so I was approached, and 2 weeks later, we were on the sand dunes starting to film. The pre-production for this process was very minimal. I had one call with the group of participants, the 10 other veterans that were also on this trip. So we weren't really dialing storylines or getting shot lists or doing storyboards. It was all about the expedition. It was all about the adventure.
We're thinking around, it might take us 8 to 9 hours to get there. And so it's gonna be a long, long hike.
And something that I love and something that I find I do often in my work is pairing an adventure with meaningful storytelling. Where this starts to get complicated but important when you're directing a real-world adventure is that the adventure often comes first. The personal experiences that these veterans were going through was paramount. It wasn't about me creating a film, it was about them going on an experience.
Good to go?
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah, it's for a minute, I think so, yeah.
Where that starts to differ in the production side of things is that I'm not staging things and having characters go through certain actions again. I'm just capturing B-roll of the moment. In essence, this is about filming an expedition and going into the editing room later and trying to bring out a story. At this point in my career, I'm often approached with these sorts of stories that don't have a clear beginning, middle, and end, but they know there's a special adventure that's happening because my reputation has sort of developed in the way that I can create a film that goes to film festivals and does pretty well from an adventure that isn't really scripted.
I feel like this is like a launch pad, like getting here.
So by planning these big adventures and by planning these meaningful experiences for people, they know they can hire me and I can kind of capture the story that unfolds in real time. Although this sounds super cool and groovy, it also is a little bit stressful on my end. Going into an adventure without a clear storyline makes me a little bit nervous because there's potential for it not to work out, right? There's potential for the characters not to feel anything, for them not to experience anything meaningful, but by saying yes to projects that I believe in and that I think might have a transformative effect on somebody, I feel confident that if the adventure is correct, people will have a transformative experience. And my job becomes a lot easier because I'm then holding a mirror up to these experiences and these emotions that these people are feeling, rather than having to sort of force it in the edit or force it in the moment.
That I am so lucky, which had become a mantra as I was walking around. Head down, I'm so lucky, I'm so lucky.
Something that was so special about The Summit Within is that these characters really did go on a journey. They pushed themselves physically, but they also really pushed themselves emotionally, and they were trying new things and experiencing real raw emotions. And by being there with my camera, I was able to document so much of that.
It was tough, absolutely. It's a long way to go. Yeah, it is, but you're not alone. Absolutely not alone. I felt the camaraderie here so big.
Once we arrived in Colorado, I'm based in Colorado, but I was spending the summer in California, so I flew back to Colorado to begin filming this, which is funny because normally it's only a few hours away. But I flew back into Colorado, we all road tripped down to the Great Sand Dunes together, and we were base camping just a few miles outside of the sand dunes. This base camp is where we started to acclimatize. A lot of the veterans were coming from sea level. Mattia was from Italy, Michelle was from the Netherlands, and Kate was from the UK. So all relatively low elevation places that they were coming from. So they wanted to spend a couple days acclimatizing, doing mellow hikes before going on this bigger adventure up to higher altitude.
I actually wasn't expecting to feel the altitude so much. It's a little bit tough, but we handled that and tomorrow will be better.
For me, this was also a really great time to start to build rapport with these people. When creating a film about somebody, I really like to get to know them, and I really like to start to care about these people, because when I genuinely feel like I care about somebody, I feel so passionate about wanting to tell their story in the best way possible, because if I feel their emotions as they're feeling their emotions, I can help bring that out in the edit. Something that was really powerful about the Summit Within as well is I was the one filming it and I was the one editing it, which meant all of these emotions that I felt on the mountain and I felt through them, I was able to partner that in the edit by bringing out some of these emotional moments with more emotional music, or choosing to hold on shots a little longer because I know that was actually a really powerful moment for them. So we set off on the big adventure. We got a briefing where everybody got their backpacks and all of their kit that they needed to go on this expedition. Thankfully, we had so many amazing sponsors that provided backpacks and sleeping bags and tents and coats and gear, which made the adventure a lot more accessible for these veterans that were sort of reintroducing themselves into civilian life again and maybe didn't have the financial interest or means to buy all of this stuff for themselves. Thankfully, it was provided, which made the experience so much more smooth for everybody that was involved. Films like this and experiences like this can't get made without people supporting it. So if you were involved in this in any way, thank you so much for your support. And I'm so grateful that we were allowed to share a story like this. I know it means a lot to me, but it also means a lot to the people that were involved. When we pulled up at the trailhead, we were all very excited. Everyone was feeling good and healthy, and about an hour or two into this big multi-day backpacking adventure, everyone was feeling the altitude and feeling pretty wiped.
Jesus.
Just try to watch the breathing coming up here. This is the highest I've ever been, so.
People were sweating, people were sitting down, wanting to take breaks, but we had to keep moving because we had a place to be that night, and that meant a lot of hiking. So we just trudged on. Along the creeks, through the forests, through the wildflowers. It was a beautiful place to be. Filming this was pretty simple. I would run up ahead and pull off and get a shot of them walking through the frame, and then I would wait an hour and get another shot. Thankfully, by having so much time hiking through these landscapes, we could get a wide variety of footage, capturing a wide shot, medium shot, tight shot of everything that we were going through, which made the edit process very seamless. If you've watched this channel at all, you've maybe seen me talk about shooting for coverage, because I didn't know what the story was going to be, so I was just getting all sorts of angles and all sorts of things, trying to keep my shot steady, in focus, and exposed for at least 10 seconds. Then, once all of the clips were done and all of the moments were captured, I could go into the editing process and create the film. So the first day was a lot of just running around, getting various angles of hiking. Our local guide, Kurt from Narrow Ridge Outdoors, was amazing, and he noticed that what the group needed maybe was a little bit of emotional support rather than physical support that first night.
Just want you to think, it was an accomplishment. We've covered a lot of ground, a lot of altitude, after a lot of travel, a lot of jet lag, and you all made it here. You should be proud. This is not an easy feat to do to get here.
So being an expert at managing groups in the outdoors, he broke out a little bit of some softer skills. Getting people around the fire and talking about why it was important for people to be on this adventure, what things we're noticing, what things we can be appreciating while we're outdoors, and read some poems. It was so touching for me, and I think for the other participants, that I decided to include it in the documentary and have a little scene about him reading some excerpts from some of the poem books that he'd brought.
Accomplished the great task by a series of small acts. The master never reaches for the great. Thus she achieves greatness.
And that for me is the whole essence of these documentaries, is taking these real experiences that people are having, these real moments, and communicating that through film. I wasn't having Kurt stage a poem reading. I didn't go into this thinking this is going to be some artsy scene where he's going to read these abstract poems and I'll be able to pair it with footage really well. It was only after the fact that I realized, like, wow, this was a really important moment. I would love to include this somehow, and realize that I had mic'd up Kurt while he was reading the poems, and that ended up being one of my favorite scenes of the entire film.
Which is what we're here for. We're here to test our boundaries, find our boundaries. Some people found them.
Then came Summit Day. Summit Day was physically exhausting for everybody, but I think especially me, with the camera and the gimbal running up and down this mountain to try to get as many angles as possible. I was in the final few weeks of training for a 50K ultramarathon, so I was feeling quite strong, but I realized in hindsight that I probably wouldn't have been able to document this film very well if I didn't have the athletic ability to do something like this. And I don't mean that as a way to say like I'm an athlete slash director that can do all sorts of physical things. Like, no, not at all. There are definitely ways to work around it. In the moment, I was quite thankful that I was acclimatized to altitude and feeling strong enough to be able to run laps up and down this 13er to try to capture the various angles. Mattia is a Paralympian and was quite fast, so being up at the front with him, filming him summiting, filming him at the top of the mountain, I would then run down and capture Kate, film a little bit with her, run back up, capture Mattia topping out, run back down to Michelle, who was at the bottom. Everybody was pretty spread out, and I would run back to Michelle.
It's a journey, but it's worth it.
Interview him, talk with him for a little bit, and then I'd run back up. So I probably did like 3 or 4 laps with the gimbal, running with the camera, trying to get shots of these people having this meaningful experience. It was a pretty active day, but so much fun. And I think pairing that physical adventure and the emotional experience that they were having ended up being a really fulfilling experience for me as somebody that loves to film these physical expeditions in the outdoors. Having both the physical elements that kind of check the boxes of a big adventure and the emotional elements of people healing and going through something meaningful in the outdoors made this project like so great in my own personal journey. Once we got to the top of the mountain, emotions really started to come out. At the summit, I interviewed Kate, who has terminal cancer and had 5 years to live. And that was 4 years ago that she was told that. And she was on the summit of this mountain, just feeling like maybe this was the beginning of the end for her. And knowing that she doesn't have to worry about like sitting in traffic anymore or doing all the things that maybe bring us down, but being out in this beautiful landscape was what was so impactful. And I think being on the other side of the camera, I am just sobbing and I'm weeping and I'm really starting to feel for her, knowing that like this is kind of it for her. There's not like much life potentially left beyond this next year for her. So she's really trying to live in the moment, and watching somebody so present like that made me really appreciate the beauty that was around there as well. And again, this is where the filming and editing being both helped my directorial skills on this, and I think helped the story a lot because I was feeling a lot of the things that she was feeling. So being able to pair those experiences on the mountain, once I was back at the computer, maybe helped bring the story to life in a different way. Finally, the sand dunes. There was a lot of hiking that happened in between there, but no powerful and amazing moments. Once we got to the sand dunes, we realized within the first 10 minutes of walking on the sand that it was so incredibly hard. We had big packs and we were sinking in every single step into the sand.
I'm not gonna die of cancer. I'm gonna die here.
It was tough walking on this. So much so that we had planned to do this big, massive route crossing the entire sand dunes and ended up having to cut in a little bit early and go across a creek because there was just no time and no interest from everybody to continue on this like major misery fest hiking up and over these sand dunes. And this sand dune is tall. We went to the highest dune in North America, right at the base of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. They're beautiful and they're stunning, but they're quite tall. And walking on sand that you're sinking in was super challenging. The wind was blowing and we were just like fully immersed in the elements. We watched this amazing sunset, and after that cut down into this creek and kept on walking out until we finished. There was also this really wild moment that happened where there was this family that was playing on the sand dunes and one of the kids had like fallen down and hit his head on a rock, and it was like this very scary medical situation, and Kate, being a military doctor, was right there and like helped save this kid and encouraged the family to take him to a hospital, but kind of did emergency on the ground care, being a first responder right there before they got additional medical help. And watching her bedside manner and doing all of this stuff in the moment was also just so wild. We didn't include it in the final documentary because it didn't feel like it fit with the flow of the story, but it was a moment where I'm like, wow, these people are amazing and they're doing so many amazing things. And of course, this adventure is a part of it, but really getting to see Kate's profession and what she loves to do was pretty amazing to see as well. Yeah, I guess closing thoughts, like this film It went to 7 film festivals. It got nominated for Best Documentary at one of the film festivals, and it's definitely a project I'm really proud of, both in terms of the editing, but also just in being invited to be a part of this adventure. I think adventures like this are so important for veterans or for any other type of person that's looking to heal in the outdoors. And I hope that stories like this continue to be shared in the outdoor industry and in the world writ large, because I think nature does have a really powerful healing effect on people. And by holding up a mirror to these people's experience, I hope that can just be broadcast to more people and more people can experience the joy of nature. If you want to check out the full film and feel some of these emotions for yourself, really sit down, grab a bag of popcorn and enjoy it. It is for free on the YouTube channel. It's on my website, it's on the Water Bear Network. We got licensed through them as well, so there's definitely places to watch it, and I hope you enjoy. Thanks so much for watching. I love you, I'm proud of you. Subscribe if you want to see new videos coming every Wednesday about adventure filmmaking. Have the best day ever.